I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. You do exactly what I said.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're looking at infamous crimes that left the world reeling. We'll be excluding war crimes, however.
A flash from Dallas. 2 priests who were with President Kennedy say he is dead of bullet wounds.
The Tiananmen Square Massacre.
China is a nation at war with itself. As a result, the world is a much different place tonight.
The iconic photograph of an unidentified man facing down a line of tanks leaving Tiananmen Square has become an enduring symbol of individual bravery in the face of government brutality.
It wasn't just a single tank he stopped. There were 18 tanks and armored carriers in this convoy, and while he talked to the crew and ignored the gunfire, he stopped all of them.
In April 1989, student-led protests spread across China, calling for democracy and greater civil liberties. Workers joined them, angry over inflation and corruption. At first, the government avoided direct action, but on June 4th, the military was sent in to disperse protesters in Tiananmen Square, Beijing. The death toll is disputed, with estimates ranging from hundreds to thousands, tragically silenced forever.
One official government report characterized the massacre as a glorious victory over counter-revolutionary turmoil. But hardly anyone in this city thinks there's much glory in shooting down unarmed civilians.
The Jeffrey Dahmer killings.
Milwaukee police found body parts in a North Side apartment, and now they wonder if they've uncovered some kind of death factory.
Also known as the Milwaukee Monster, Jeffrey Dahmer killed 17 men between 1978 and 1991. He also did horrific things with their remains. Such awful crimes raise difficult questions. Where does this kind of evil come from? And how was he able to get away with it for so long? After Dahmer was arrested in 1991 and the crimes exposed, the world was outraged.
Dahmer was 33 when he told Nancy Glass about his twisted motive for killing 17 men.
Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me.
A group calling themselves Milwaukee Civic Pride even raised over $400,000 to purchase and destroy many of his possessions. Dahmer was killed by another prisoner in 1994.
A form of justice he said he deserved.
That's what I deserve. I deserve death.
Even decades later, people continue to feel shocked at the brutality of his crimes. The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
I ask every citizen to reject the blind violence that has struck Dr. King, who lived by nonviolence.
In the struggle for equality, few speakers have had as lasting an impact as Martin Luther King Jr. As a megaphone of justice during the American Civil Rights Movement, Dr. King's words inspired countless people as he insisted that the road to universal freedom be a peaceful one.
When all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
His sudden assassination devastated the nation, leaving a powder keg of anger and sadness. Riots erupted across the country, but important legislation also materialized in the wake of his impact. King inspired civil rights activism across multiple continents and through forthcoming decades. He remains an immortal icon of cultural and social change. The murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman.
Your Honor, at this time, the people would ask that Mr. Simpson step forward and try on the glove recovered at Bundy as well as the glove recovered at Rockingham.
All of us who grew up in the 90s remember the line, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." And what about that surreal police chase we watched unfold on live TV?
As the nation held its breath and Simpson's friends pleaded with the former football hero.
In June 1994, former footballer and actor O.J. Simpson was arrested after his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman were murdered. The trial was well publicized, with millions of people watching and debating whether or not Simpson did it. In the end, O.J. was acquitted, although he was found liable in a later civil trial.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
Even today, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who doesn't have an opinion on the case. The 2015 Paris attacks. News of the terrifying attacks in Paris on November 13th spread quickly in 2015. In coordinated attacks across the city, Islamist terrorists killed 130 people. 3 bombers blew themselves up outside the football stadium Stade de France during a game. Other terrorists fired on cafes and restaurants. The worst attack, however, came during an Eagles of Death metal concert at the Bataclan Theater. In the awful aftermath, many countries reached out to show their support. People all over the world grieved for the victims and for France.
This is an attack not just on Paris, it's an attack not just on the people of France, but this is an attack on all of humanity and the universal values that we share.
The Oklahoma City bombing. Before September 11th, this next crime was the deadliest terrorist attack to happen within the United States.
Was an attack on innocent children and defenseless citizens. It was an act of cowardice, and it was evil.
On April 19, 1995, the Oklahoma City bombing left 168 dead and 680 people injured. The perpetrators were anti-government white supremacists who had served together in the U.S. Army. They used a truck bomb to blow up the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. The two sought revenge for how government agencies had handled the 1992 Ruby Ridge standoff with white supremacist Randy Weaver and the 1993 Waco siege with a religious cult known as the Branch Davidians. Timothy McVeigh was executed in 2001, while Terry Nichols remains behind bars.
McVeigh is specifically charged with having delivered the bomb to the Murrah Building in a truck that he rented under a false name and having detonated the bomb at the Murrah Building.
The Munich Massacre.
Hundreds of TV cameras in place to cover the Olympic Games, now trained on this window.
The 1972 Summer Olympics were a historic occasion. It was the first time that Germany had hosted since Hitler's rule as Führer. However, hopes for a peaceful event were shattered when 8 men from Palestinian militant organization Black September killed 2 members of the Israeli Olympics team and took 9 others hostage. They demanded the release of 234 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli prisons.
They want what they call the Israeli war machine to release 200 Arabs.
The news was televised worldwide as people at home watched in fear and anger. In a botched rescue attempt, all the hostages were killed.
In a firefight at a nearby military airfield, the terrorists turned their guns on their hostages. Once the firing stopped, all 9 of the Israeli hostages, a German policeman, and 5 of the 8 terrorists were dead.
It was a tragedy that remains ingrained in many people's minds. The Manson family murders.
The rantings of a madman. Charles Manson in full flight.
Fault makes strong. Good pain. Understand pain. Not bad. Pain's not bad, it's good.
In 1967's Summer of Love, struggling musician Charles Manson moved to San Francisco, where he gathered a group of dedicated followers, most of them women. While he preached free love, he was in fact a white supremacist with delusions of grandeur.
I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. You do exactly what I say.
His cult, the Manson family, set themselves up in a ranch in Los Angeles County. The group was responsible for at least 9 murders, perhaps up to 24, which may have been motivated by Manson's belief in an impending race war. Their most infamous crime was the murder of pregnant actress Sharon Tate and 4 others found at her home. The crime left everyone in the area on edge and remains notorious today. Manson died in prison in November 2017.
The Manson family killing spree is a crime that will most likely continue to confound and horrify for the next 50 years.
The assassination of JFK.
A flash from Dallas. 2 priests who were with President Kennedy say he is dead of bullet wounds.
America's heart still aches when remembering the assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963. As he rode in a presidential motorcade in Dallas, Texas, he was shot twice, with his Jacqueline sitting beside him.
It was just like a looped tape of the president's head exploding. I could not shake it.
The shooter was former U.S. Marine Lee Harvey Oswald, but although he was arrested, he himself was murdered by nightclub operator Jack Ruby. These circumstances would go on to spawn numerous conspiracy theories. The nation in mourning. Hundreds of thousands of people showed up to see President Kennedy's casket and pay their respects. What happened that infamous day is still talked about and debated.
The assassination shook the nation and the Secret Service.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. the September 11th attacks. Many of us can remember exactly where we were when we heard the news of the September 11th attacks in 2001.
We saw a lot of things that day that no one should see.
Islamist terrorists hijacked 4 planes, crashing 2 into New York's Twin Towers and 1 into the Pentagon. The 4th crashed into a field after passengers on board revolted. In total, almost 3,000 people were killed. People were shocked at the loss of life, at an attack on American soil, and that the U.S. had been blindsided.
Night fell on a different world, a world where freedom itself is under attack.
In the aftermath, the world changed forever, with the so-called War on Terror and the NSA's expanded powers of mass surveillance. It was a truly tragic opening to the 21st century. What crime do you find the most shocking? Let us know in the comments below.
There are times when I still do have the old compulsions.